Okay. Good afternoon. I'd like to call the study session meeting on September 25th, 2024. City Clerk, may we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Lamb. Councilmember Gutierrez.
Here.
Councilmember Gregory.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Ross. Here. Mayor Carnevale.
I am here. Thank you. Yes. Are there any changes to the study session, Charlie?
I have no changes, Mayor.
Okay. City Clerk, will you please read the statement of participation?
Public comment is the opportunity for members of the public to comment on items that are within the City Council's jurisdiction but not on the agenda. Because of restrictions contained in California law, the City Council may not discuss or act on any item not on the agenda, but may briefly respond to statements made or ask a question for clarification. The mayor may also request a brief response from staff to questions raised during public comment or request that a matter be agendized for a future meeting. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes. If you're a member of the public and you wish to address the City Council, please complete a request to speak form available at the entrance and submit it to the City Clerk. You will be called upon at the appropriate time. If you have materials or other items to present to the members of the City Council, please do not approach them. All materials shall be presented to the City Clerk for distribution. I do have one request to speak form from Danny Lee. Oop.
Hello, Danny.
Hold on a minute, let me get you going.
In 1995, I immigrated to this country, and at that time I was subject to a background check. In 2003, I took naturalization, became a citizen, and was subject to another background check. In 2010, I took the National NBLEX examination for massage therapy, was awarded a license in New Mexico, and was subject to a background check. In 2016, when I moved to this state, I applied for and was granted certification at the California Massage Therapy Council, and I was subject to a background check. In 2019, I joined Citizens on Patrol and was subject to a background check. And in 2022, I joined Voices for Children as a court-appointed special advocate for youth. And again, I was subject to a background check. I've probably been checked more than any of you on the City Council. And as a massage therapist, I've worked with psychiatrists who've referred people with body dysmorphia to me. I've worked with a multiple sclerosis organization working on their clients. And often now, medical insurance will pay for massage therapy. So imagine my surprise and disappointment when last week I applied to renew my business license in this city and was told that as a massage therapist, you were now adding a police check to be delivered annually at a cost of $95 to each massage therapist. CCMC 533, that governs massage therapy. It conflates a legal health practice with prostitution. It lists prohibited activities that are basically restricted for any business. No business should be allowed to human traffic, to provide prostitution services, to pander, or to practice lewd activities. Yet those exclusions are only listed in 2 sections of our municipal code, one for massage therapists and the other for sexually oriented businesses. Now, the police have procedures to find and prosecute offenders. I don't think they need to turn up once a year by appointment to a massage office in order to figure out if something bad is going on there. I'm not quite sure what they would find. So I asked about this inspection. I was told other similar businesses would also be subject to this new inspection. What other businesses, I thought? Electrologists, people who take facial hair and sometimes personal hair from bodies, or maybe it's chiropractors, doctors, nurses, other people that are alone with patients in a room. And I have not been given an answer, although I've asked the staff for that information. What would the police be looking for? If you're going to run an inspection of a business, there has to be a governmental interest. And in order for that to exist, there must be a standard that you're applying. What is the standard in this case? What is it that you're going to send the police into my business for to inspect what I'm doing?
Danny, you're well over 3 minutes, but if you want to keep going for just a little bit more, button it up, I'll give you that.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. So let me just round it up with this statement, which is from California law. The California law, the Massage Therapy Act, states local governments shall impose and enforce only reasonable and necessary fees and regulations on massage businesses and massage establishments in keeping with the requirements of existing law and being mindful of the need to protect legitimate business owners and massage professionals, particularly sole providers. And I am one. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny.
Of the public and you wish to provide public comment at this time, please raise your hand.
Okay.
I see.
Thank you very much. Item A, City Entryway Monument Subcommittee Report and Public Arts Commission Recommendations. Mr. City Manager, do we have a staff report?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. There was an item in your strategic plan that was adopted last year related to doing a study of entryway features in the city. That's one of the things that we deferred when we had to make budget reductions so that we could spend money to repair the damage done by the tropical storm last year. In the meantime, however, Mayor Pro Tem Ross and a couple of the members of the Arts Commission formed a committee to take a look at this, and I have some recommendations for you. And we thought we'd present it to you because what you think of this will then inform what we need to do in terms of the next year's budget related to a study or implementation costs or something like that. So this is provided for feedback, and I hope I didn't do your whole presentation, John.
No, that's very good. Mayor Pro Tem, City Council members, Ann Ambrose, our Assistant City Manager, led the charge on this. She's out of town right now, so I'm going to do the presentation on her behalf, on the city's behalf. So, as our City Manager stated, this is about the entryway monuments. A little background: entryway monuments are important elements on the city's branding campaign, identifying the city. We've actually worked on this for years to make sure that when people come into the city, they know they're in Cathedral City. It's the first messaging they get about us. An action item in the strategic plan, as was stated, was in there to invest in doing an entryway monument study, lighting plan, anything related to us, to visitors coming into the city. Mayor Pro Tem Ross approached the Public Arts Commission. She's taken the ball. And with that idea of creating a standardized entryway monument concept. So with that, the Mayor Pro Tem created a subcommittee with members of PAC, 2 volunteers of road, former Chair Tom Rudolph and current Chair Craig Liebelt volunteered, appreciated that. And they went around the city and took some field trips, looked at what we had, and we're looking for a way that, how do we standardize an entryway program? It may avail itself to be more economical that way. It may avail itself to presenting people with the fact that they see something and they go, oh, we're in Cathedral City. There's lots of options with that. So right now we have a variety of public art with or without Cathedral City on the base, identifying it. It's at our entryways. We have smaller city logo signs. These were part of the 2016 adopted wayfinding sign program. So the logos on all the wayfinding signs, and we're looking at updating those. And then the monument signs. That's that swoop that you see on East Palm Canyon and formerly on Ramon Road. So that monument sign, like I said, in 2016 was going to be a standardized type sign, but it doesn't fit everywhere in the size it is. And then there's places where there's nothing. When you come into the city, it doesn't really tell you where you are. Public art entry examples, Chopsticks, which is on Ramon Road near Duval. We have TikTok, which is on Dinah Shore, east of Date Palm Drive. And I always forget the name of this other one. It's the one on the median right across from the auto dealerships before you get to Date Palm Drive. I have the name in the presentation. Wayfinding sign program. The wayfinding signs that are all around the city, looking to get those updated. And then once again, there's that, what we considered the entryway monument swoop. So once again, subcommittee toured all the locations. The one monument that kind of really stood out for the committee was that the Mountain Cathedrals, and that was by artist Paul Thury. This was basically a tribute to what Colonel Washington saw back in the 1800s when he had identified Cathedral Canyon. He was surveying the area, and so that emulated it and inspired that monument sign. The subcommittee looked at that and said, what if we duplicated these? And not necessarily in the same size, because the base on this is pretty massive, and it's a really, basically a pentagon to fit in with the median. But how do they look at reducing it to a smaller scale, maybe even a half scale or a quarter scale, to be able to use that as basically not necessarily an art piece, but an entryway monument that would signify when people saw it, they wouldn't even need to see a sign. They could say, that's Cathedral City. In addition to that, maybe some lettering underneath it that says, welcome to Cathedral City. So there is the Mountain Cathedral's entryway piece. When you talk to people, most people do recognize this and they remember it, because if you look at these and you look up at the mountains, you can pretty much see the cathedrals up there. So this is not a depiction of color. It's not a depiction of what it could be. It could be, though. But what this was done, the reason this was done, and it's in your staff packet, your staff report packet, is to provide you the depth and relief of that item, because there's 3 cathedral peaks, but because of the 3D dimensioning on it, most people wouldn't see that. So really, that depicts the 3 mountain peaks in there. So the subcommittee looked at, went around the city, and they proposed 6 locations for the new entryway monuments. Some locations would require relocating existing public art pieces. Mind you, there's a cost with that. So they looked at relocating the existing Chopsticks piece at Ramon Road, east of Duval, and replace it with a new monument piece. Relocating the existing TikTok piece located at Dinah Shore Drive, east of Date Palm Drive, and replaced with a new monument piece. Install a new monument piece within the median on Gerald Ford Drive, west of Duval Drive. Relocate the existing Tyron 4, that's the name of that piece, and add a new monument piece on East Palm Canyon across from Palm Springs Motors. And as I recall correctly, with the development of the new Cathedral Cove project, they are going to have to move that piece anyway. It's got to be relocated because their entry pocket's going to extend that far, their left turn pocket for their new development to get in from Date Palm, East Palm Canyon to their south Date Palm Drive entrance. And then install a new monument piece in the median Ramon Road at the intersection of Landau Boulevard. This one has been in works for a long time, from the Ramon Road Bridge Project Public Arts Commission days when I was Public Arts Commissioner, where the Public Arts Commission was looking at putting something that would emphasize and respect the Agua Caliente Band of Cuya Indians, as participatory in a lot of our road projects, the bridge project, and their value to the community. Their tribal properties are right near that location. One of the things that we're looking at, and staff will seek direction, is whether we continue with that project, because the bridge project is putting electric to that center median area just for whatever's going to be there in the future. Whether we continue with that or we propose to install a new monument piece, which could be the Mountains Cathedral piece that we're talking about now. So once again, this is kind of overview that you see on your screen of the locations. These are the main entry corridors that they looked at emphasizing for having an additional art piece. And I might add that if we really got down to it, there's a few other locations, maybe in the north part of the city, that piece could fit. Vista Chino coming in from Palm Springs. Once they get the bridge done, I'm sure we're going to want to put something in there, and we'll work with staff to be able to make sure that there might be a median spot there to do that. Welcome Cathedral City once you come in over that bridge. So there's a lot of opportunities here, and duplication makes it a little more economical. And once again, whether you take that one significant art piece and you downsize it and make it into basically that's representative of Cathedral City. So basically, on fiscal impact, this project is not allocated in the budget. Remember when we did the budget adjustments, fiscal year 23-24, after Hillary, we had to take this out as one of the sacrifices to keep getting us through the year. So Public Works solicited preliminary quotes for the fabrication and installation of the mountain cathedrals. The price ranged from, and these are in your packet, $59,000 for quarter size, $73,000 half size, and basically $147,000 up to $147,000 for half side plus the installation. And then you got to deal with the concrete bases, $5,000 to $7,000 per base, depending on the size of which monument piece you're picking. And remember, there's a cost, I stated this before, in moving other art pieces. So it's not a matter of just picking them up with a regular. You need a crane to pick them up. You need to either demo or be able to reutilize the existing base, which is probably not the case. So you can just count that out. And then where you're going to relocate it to, you're going to have costs in there too. Once again, this follows our strategic goal plan, and it is action item B2. So from this presentation, what staff is looking for is for the City Council to, here's 3 options that we came up with: accepting this proposal as the new entryway monument and foregoing further need to conduct monument entryway study. We can look at colors, we can look at styles, we can look at sizes, but if we got that direction, we'd know what we're focusing on. We're starting to cut away at this big idea and get it down to a real sharper idea. Conduct a more formal entryway monument study and include this as a recommendation, and we would include that in the next fiscal year budget. That could range from $100,000 to $150,000, depending on the extent of the study. The city is big, there's lots of entryways, and the corridors would be evaluated as well. And then, or confirm whether the City Council wishes to continue to use the current entryway monument identified in the 2016 Wayfinding Sign Program, which is the one you see in the bottom right corner, and reaffirm budgeting for this for additional monuments in future years. So we could keep adding these and put those in incrementally in the future budgets. So, Mayor,
Go right ahead.
back to you. Yes.
I've got a booming voice, so it doesn't matter. So a couple of things. One, I like the idea of, pacing it out over a few years. It's an expensive project. But I also recall that when we had a meeting with the 2 commissioners from Arts, You all, and I stayed out of this conversation, you all discussed making them out of aluminum, but in the packet, they're all stainless steel. So you talked about that, I can't remember if it was 3/8 or half-inch aluminum, but my recollection is you thought that would be about half the cost of stainless steel, which could make a significant difference in the final cost.
It could, and I think the bigger premise that we're looking at right now is the 5,000 foot level right here. That gets down to the 1,000 of what material, what color. It's the whole concept of, is that the way we want to go?
No, I
And
completely
we can
understand that, but
always
you
make
had
it a little
dollar
less
amounts in there, so I
expensive.
wanted to make sure that
Right.
when people are assessing it, there are other options than stainless steel, and we recommended aluminum.
Good concept. Good comment. Thank you.
Question?
I just had one question. So it says in 2016 that entryway, like the rest one that just says Cathedral City, that was decided, somebody decided that, was that the council that decided? Was that the Public Arts Commission at the time? Is that how?
That was
is
presented to the council, and that was
Yes.
the decision made at that time to select that, along with the signs that were the entryway signs on some of the corners where it just says Cathedral City, and also the wayfinding signs. Those were much less costly to install, so we got a lot further with those through the years
I see.
than with the entryway monument. 2 initially were installed, and I think one of them was hit by a car or a truck or something. so
It was, and it wasn't
there's one out there
salvageable. The main thing to remember on that too, I was here too at that time, and Public Works was the one that were managing the installation, was that they were location specific. It's got a big footprint, so it can only fit in specific places.
Big curve.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
okay.
at that time, there wasn't a discussion of making them smaller or bigger depending on the size and location.
Okay. I like both of them, and I love the idea of having something consistent in the entryways to our city. And I love the spires, because that certainly is representative of what Cathedral City is, so I have no problem with that. But I think the cost is the, $200,000, to relocate all the, is a big chunk. But I like the idea of going with the spires, as long as the one that was originally decided in 2016 is just kind of site-specific based on the available space, and we could modify the spires to go anywhere that suits our purposes for the entrance to the city. That makes sense? Okay, there, I've said it. Done.
It does.
So let's talk about the one existing, the one I'll call the swoop. So is that proposal to take that one out?
There's no proposal on what to do with that. It could actually have something added to it in front of it, more closer to where
It
the
has
dealers
plenty in front
are.
of it. I think it's kind of odd in this, I don't know if they intended this, but it's difficult at many angles.
Swoop the red.
Yeah. It's difficult at many angles even to see what it says till you get right up on it.
John, go back to the map. I think this will answer the question. Because he showed the locations where they would propose to install this, and East Palm Canyon and up on Ramon both are identified, and that's where those swoops were, so they'd need to come out in order for these to go in those locations.
That's what I'm asking. I'm hoping we're not just going to add another, because it's already there. It's already got the swoop, and it's already got an art piece and landscaping. To me, that's the oddest one, because when you come on there, it's very difficult to see any of that. So it's almost like it's all just congested right there. And then, of course, you go on with regular median, the rest of the street. but
We
it's
do
all
have a
congested right
wayfinding
there.
sign there too that adds to that.
Yes.
in there.
There's plenty right
So
there.
I think that's an
But
important-
more is not better, and I think that's a good example of where more is not better, because something simple like this design that's been presented, that's at all of the entrances, I believe is better, so I'm a fan of that. But I'm not a fan of just leaving things there because, it's already there. It's like, no, we need to start with a fresh palette, in my opinion, and that's a good example of where, because you already have art that needs to go somewhere else. And I am a fan of this move, what I see as a move of not just having an art piece somehow identifying the entrance to your city. The art should go somewhere else where it can be appreciated better, and we should have some kind of a trademark or logo, a brand that represents the entrances to our city. So I do like the spires. I think not just because it's right there up between District 5 and District 3, although that's an excellent place for it, but that it's very identifiable. I can see why they wanted to put that piece right there at the I-10 entrance. And so I've even seen people wait out in traffic. This is not advisable to anyone listening, and take their picture with it because it's that identifiable with the city. So I am a fan of that, but my question, what I'm hoping we're not going to do is then just add. To my opinion, we need to subtract, and I see part of this is subtracting the art, but I want to make sure we're also, where we add, that we're subtracting other things, and if there happens to be a tree, if we can move it somewhere or something so that we have a nice area for that. So that was the first thing I wanted to ask. The second thing I want to ask, I'm hearing that that's the plan.
Those are good comments. We're
The plan is,
appreciating that.
or at least the thought was that we would make an area for it. So I would recommend that we do that, as long as council agrees that we have a fresh start in all these places, especially that place is a good example. The second is, is there going to be any issues with the artist and the trademark or copy mark? You usually can't just copy art.
We're trying to hone that down right now.
Okay.
So,
We did discuss that the other day, and apparently it would be the estate of the artist that would be dealing with. I believe the actual artist is no longer.
He had a partner, but they were not married. So I'm not sure if he has that other
So
family.
we are pursuing if there would be any licensing agreement.
Well, I hope we don't
required or
get
anything.
too far, and I'm not against, of course, paying fair licensing, but that would have to be figured into the cost. So, and I certainly am not a fan of, because we've already kind of laid out here that we're going to be copying an art piece. I'm not a fan of just doing that and then trying to legally get around that, unless I would rather we sought permission as a legacy perhaps to the artist, if nothing else, that before we proceed with that.
that's a number one. We've had that internal discussion, it needs to be done.
All right, thank you. So there were some, you mentioned the Vistachino Bridge project eventually. So I would hope in the meantime that we might look at, because that's probably a number of years off still, realistically, that we would look at least refreshing our wayfinding signs there as part of this, as a minor
Yes.
add-on. And then when it comes in, I would hope as a project, we would do the same. The plan would be to do the same. So and then you mentioned the Ramon Bridge.
Yes.
Again, I think we need to get away from placing art pieces as the entrance to our city and have a brand. So I would recommend that we abandon at least placing there some type of memorial piece of cooperation with the tribe. And if we want to pursue that, or if the commission wants to continue to pursue that, then we look somewhere else for that, and that we change the plan there. Now, whether it needs to be lighted or not, I don't know if that makes a difference, but that can, I guess, be determined by someone who's reviewing what the actual architecture of the whole roadway looks like with everything else that's going to go in there, landscaping.
If I can get concurrence on that from the council, you would save me
Well, as we
years
go
of
down,
trying to find.
maybe they'll give
get
you their
an answer
opinion.
for
So
that.
if they don't, maybe you can ask about Ramon Road. So, and then I didn't hear or see anything about the 111 entry from Palm Springs. So can you talk about the plan there?
If you look at the map again, it kind of, the reason you don't see anything on Vistachino and on the east entrance, or the entrance from Palm Springs, are locations where there are no medians. And so all of these that are on the map are median locations. There's nothing that says this piece couldn't be placed on the side of the road in the right-of-way. If you look at the city of Palm Desert, the one with the rocks, they have them on the side. A lot of places. So that would be, when we get to the funding phase, during budget discussions and deciding how many we're going to do in a year and things like that, I think those would be pertinent conversations as part of
Okay, and
that.
that kind of links back to where I had started. Then if some of these ones are going to be, and I agree they should be phased, this isn't an urgent item, and we have many other fiscal needs, but it is something that as our city continues to get better and better, I would like to see this roll out in a logical way, that at least we could make sure we have updated and nice-looking wayfinding signs, if that's what we're going to do temporarily. So if 111's not on here because that might be part of a future solution or to the side, I would say, okay, but let's not forget it as part of this, that there should be a plan for at least some kind of a wayfinding or a smaller welcome to Cathedral City sign while we're.
We have a MUP project and a future widening of that same area on the west city limits. And certainly if there was direction and we knew what we were dealing with, we can actually incorporate that and probably diminish some of the cost of even improving a small median that would allow for that. And at least know that that's, our target.
Right. I think that's an important entrance that we really ought to consider.
Significant.
Something there. So, all right, and that is all my comments. Thank you.
Councilmember Gutierrez?
Thank you, John. Good afternoon. Now, do you have the measurements for the entry at Day Palm and Visachino?
The Day Palm and Vista, you mean the size of the
Yes.
monument site? Yes, we do. I do
Because
not
that-
have those in hand, but it is a massive piece.
Yes, because the reason I'm asking is because when you start to scale that down to 50% or 25%, it's a huge difference that once you actually see it in person, it's probably going to be about 4 feet high. 4 feet high is not even worth to do anything. I'd rather do the whole as close as we can to the actual size than just to do something that is not going to be noticeable at all.
The challenge, and I'm hearing you, we did all the measurements on the entry sign so that we could send the fabricators to get, diminished scales on it. The base of that is very big and it wouldn't fit in a lot of locations, and it drives the cost up significantly. So those are just the facts I'm presenting, that it was all about looking at how do we get the wow of what it is, not necessarily in size as an art piece, that's an art piece, but that is characteristic of the city. Just like behind you, our logo has those 3 peaks, looking at how we can brand that and make it a monument, not an art piece, but more of, oh, that's Cathedral City, like I stated. But we could certainly look at the cost on a full size. I'm sure it's going to be in the $300,000-400,000 range with the base itself, just in proportion to the bids we got on the reduced scale sizes. So.
No, but one thing we can do when we get to the budget discussion, just out of cardboard or some material, that would be, we can bring you what a half size would look like and what a quarter size so that you can understand the scale. We can also use some CGI, some computer generated, to at various locations mock up what a half one would look like at this location and a quarter one, so that you can get a better idea of what that would be like.
We may be able to get a 3D printed model of it, Charlie, too. We can look into that so that
Yeah, because I like
can
to
pick it up
definitely
and carry
see
it in here.
I would like to see it because, as Councilmember Gregory mentioned, it is a beautiful art piece, and people do actually acknowledge driving into Cathedral City. That would be the perfect piece for Ramon Road and Landau, because that definitely, as soon as you drive over the bridge, is visible, is right there. So that's the one that I would be in favor of for that location.
high volume roadways, it would work. And then on the Ramon Road Bridge, we could probably get the base incorporated in the bridge project if we were really shrewd enough, if I could find an engineer to do that.
Do you know any engineers, John?
Yeah.
Now, my other question is, since this is considered art, is it possible to actually use art funds for any of these art projects?
The answer is yes, but you start diminishing the art fund rapidly by doing this. So it's a question of, do we incorporate it into projects? Do we put it in the budget? And once we said segregate it out and meter it out, because if we were to do 3 or 4 of these art pieces, we would diminish basically almost the entire arts fund budget.
Yeah, but
So-
if we actually schedule this one every 4 or 5 years and possibly also contribute to the general, from the general fund into that. Maybe we can do 2 pieces every couple of years.
That's a great discussion point for the city council. It's,
And I believe there's been some discussion about that art fund. If I remember, there was something that was going to come back eventually about expanding the projects that paid into that fund, so that may help.
And also, since there's a list of what areas would the art be located in, to see which ones will be the utmost important, more visible. So if we can do if we can do, let's say, 2 in the near future, which ones would they be? Where would they be located? That would be also be very important.
that's a good, once we get honed in on what we actually are looking at, like, are we committed to doing these monuments, then we can come back to you and look at where do you want these first? What's the most important? Staff can make recommendations on where our ideas are.
And that was really
go
the
ahead.
plan. If you all liked this concept, was then, as the budget is developed, each year in the budget to have, for your consideration, a plan of these 2 locations, these 2 size monuments would be funded in this year, these 2 locations, these size monuments in this year, so that you would be able to then make decisions on that.
One of the reasons that we can work on that as far as funding is because, of course, if we start working on in taking money from the general fund, we have a lot of better things to do than actually to work on these monuments. Our roads need a ton of work, so I'd much rather spend, if it's a lot of money, to actually spend some of the money repairing our roads than in some of these art pieces. Even though I do love art, but we have to actually allocate the funds where they're most necessary. Yeah. Well, thank you, John.
Understood.
All right, I'm going to make a comment, then I'm going to let Councilmember Ross finish up here. I couldn't agree any more with Councilmember Gregory, the difference between branding and art. I think the branding end of it should be responsible of the city, and we should pay for that. The artwork should, like Councilmember Gutierrez said, that should come from the art department there. And I think if you split it up like that, it would be a little bit, everybody's carrying their own weight on there, but branding is so important. If you look at Target, Nike, Walmart, football teams, baseball teams, it's all about branding. And Cathedral City is getting big enough, and we're on the map now. We're in the big leagues with the growth that we got going on here. We want not only our residents, but visitors crossing over from other cities to know where they're at, and branding is so important. So I really like the idea of having the same type of monument at every entrance or exit in Cathedral City. But then I agree with Councilmember Gutierrez as well. There's so much work to do here. Now's the time. So I think relocating and all this other thing is something we should think about seriously before acting, and possibly in goal setting next in 25, maybe we can come to an agreement how this should be implemented in the future. So that's what I have on it. And Mayor Pro Tem Ross, please.
Thanks. So I agree. I don't think they have to be done all at once, for sure. I mean, this is a long-term city project that hopefully will live, 100 years here or something like that if we do it right. I was concerned about the notion of lighting. The one out by the freeway was at one time lit. They still have the little puck lights in the base, but they don't shine anymore, and they haven't shined for as long as I've been here, which is, pushing 20 years now. So unless you have a dark intersection, which I don't see that as being an issue, but let's say it was, then I could understand some uplighting, but let's not get into that installing it in the base, because then you just have to break the base to fix it. And clearly the one out there did quit working.
Yeah, we didn't identify where lighting would be. We just looked at, lighting has become so good, so efficient, even solar lighting, that it wouldn't be incorporated in it. It just could be shining.
Just
on
uplighting.
it. Yeah.
Uplighting's wonderful, and I'm
That's
all
an
for
option.
it. And on the 111, we did go and walk those streets, and I can pretty much tell you that there is no place to put a piece on 111 if you're talking about leaving the city towards Palm Springs. You have the street, and then you have a sidewalk, and then that's private property. So there just is really, we wanted something there too, and we We went back to it a couple of times thinking we'd find more space. I have no idea what we thought, but we kept going back and we kept having to say, it just isn't going to work there. So, that's just something to think about. I think a quarter is too small, but maybe a third and a half would be better. You don't want to have a little undersized monument that says, "Oh, we're Cathedral City." You want it to say Cathedral City. One of the things we really liked and put forward to Art when we spoke to them, when Ann spoke to them a couple of weeks ago, it wasn't me, I didn't speak to them, was the importance of it saying, welcome to Cathedral City. It's not something any of the other cities do on their pieces, and we're different. We're a family city, and we're warm and welcoming, and I would very much like to think that we can consider the small costs that it would be for lettering, whether that be painted or posed on it, but something to think about. And then the Arts Commission was super excited about it too. They were unanimous, and they don't have money to pay for all of it, but they might have enough money to pay for one of them. And if we did it, one a year, maybe at the end of 5 years, they could pay for the sixth. I don't know. But they wanted to be partners in this. They felt like this was something that they'd like to get on board with. So just food for thought. That's it.
Okay. Any public comment?
Well, if I can just do a wrap-up so we have direction remember I gave you these recommendations, so I'm seeing that we're accepting this concept as the entryway monument we're looking at. Is that correct?
And we will, as the budget for the next 2 years comes forward, then we'll deal with all the issues that you raised tonight. What size? What's it made out of? What do we put? And so that we are able then to make an informed and intelligent decision on what to put in the budget, and even if we can, based on the other needs in the city. Yes. And actually, just entryway signage we can also include in the wayfinding, which also is going to come forward to you as part of the budget to upgrade those signs. So we'll
price
handle
that for
it
us
that
at
way.
aluminum as well.
Yes, we will look at alternatives. That's part of this whole next go-around. And then for the engineering division's sake, we're pretty good with this for the Ramon Road Landau intersection. That'll save us a lot of
As long as Arts is
question
also on
marks.
board, yeah.
Okay.
And then to your point, Councilmember Ross, about East Palm Canyon coming in from Palm Springs, they're in the design stage with Edison on the undergrounding project and everything there, so it may be possible to work a place in somehow in that.
That'd be awesome. I won't hold my breath, though, but that'd be awesome.
Okay, go ahead, John.
Can do.
So what we're agreeing on is that we're all talking about branding on the entryways and then artwork in other areas.
And we're going to confirm that the artist doesn't have a challenge with us duplicating the artwork.
Oh, okay.
We'll make sure that's
His
done.
estate,
Yeah.
because he's not with us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No public comment?
I have no request to speak forms for this item, but if you are a member of the public and you wish to provide public comment, now would be the time. And I see
Thank
none.
you, Tracy. Okay, next, B, residential parking and assessment of zoning regulations on street parking. Mr. City Manager, do we have a staff report?
Yeah, thank you. Andy Firestein, our Community and Economic Development Director, will kick this off. I think John's going to participate in this as well because some of it relates to engineering type matters. But you had a objective in the strategic plan related to reviewing regulations related to on-street parking in residential neighborhoods and related to blocking mailboxes with parking. And so we've got some discussion items. We did some research on what other cities do to address this, and Andy will present this, I think, assisted by John.
Thank you, Charlie. Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the City Council, Andy Firestein, your Community and Economic Development Director, and Charlie is right, John and I will be jointly delivering this presentation this afternoon. So this was guided by the council strategic plan and goals that the council set. So we're here to stir some discussion, stimulate some discussion with the council, looking for your direction on what actions you would like to initiate. We do have some recommendations. I'll lead off with the recommendations. We'll also close out with the recommendations. And I'm doing this really to put some parameters around this to let you know what John and I will be presenting to the council this afternoon, as well as to give you a sense of what we are recommending. So we are recommending that the city initiate amendments to the Cathedral City Municipal Code, both to address the zoning code, prohibiting parking in front of a mailbox, as well as looking at the development standards for residential properties in the city to increase or eliminate the driveway width standard and to allow a greater percentage of a front yard to be improved as a driveway or open parking area situationally. And we'll address what those situations are in the presentation. John, in his part of the presentation, will also acknowledge our pilot program for street sweeping notifications, and it's our recommendation that we continue to implement that program as well to observe and monitor the results from that program. So leading off, talking a little bit about our zoning code, we have standards in the code that really come from 1989, 1990. That's the period of time when those were last amended. And as you might imagine, they reinforced a different standard then than what we see today. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. But the zoning code contains minimum and maximum parking requirements, where vehicle parking is allowed on a residential property, the surface requirements for that parking, the driveway width, and the percentage of a yard that may be dedicated to driveways or improved parking areas. Principally, we are looking at 3 zoning districts. The R1, which is your typical single-family residential zoning district. Most of the city's neighborhoods are zoned R1. We also have some pockets of RE, that's a state residential zone district, and R2. R2 is a multifamily zone district that also allows for single-family residential. So you'll see that we have a minimum parking requirement in our code for 2 parking spaces within a garage. And in the R1 and RE zoning districts, we also have a maximum of 4 covered parking spaces and 1,000 square feet of open parking areas. In the R1 and RE zone districts, we also say that parking is allowed in the front and street side yards, and that any improved driveways or open parking areas, those must be surfaced with Portland cement concrete. We do have a 16-foot maximum driveway width in the R1 and RE zone districts, and a maximum 50% of that front or street side yard is allowed to be surfaced in the R1. It's 30% in the RE zone district. Again, these standards haven't been touched since 1989, 1990. It's been a while. And if we look at what's changed since then, the 2022 American Community Survey shows that for Cathedral City, 61.5% of all households in Cathedral City have 2 or more vehicles, 28.6% have 3 or more vehicles, and 11.2% of Cathedral City households have 4 or more vehicles. This is fairly typical. This is about average for the county, for the state of California, but that's a lot of vehicles. Vehicle size has also increased since then. So where our standards previously said 2 parking spaces in a garage, maximum of 4 parking spaces, the garages that were constructed then are different than what is built today and different than the vehicles that are on the roads today. We also have new state legislation. We have ADUs, JADUs, urban lot splits, 2-family dwelling units, and the parking allowances for those are different. We cannot require parking in all those instances. JADUs, we cannot require parking for those. ADUs, urban lot splits, we can require 1 parking space for those. That's allowed as a tandem parking space in the driveway, except if it's within half a mile of transit, which covers a large majority of the city. We can't require parking in those instances either. And we are seeing a lot of demand for ADUs within the city. We've seen 28 through July this year. We had 30 last year. So we're seeing a lot of demand for new types of dwelling units. We're redefining what single-family residential means. So the parking standards that we developed in the 80s, the early 90s, they may not be responsive to the needs today where you're seeing a growing demand for vehicles. And we're seeing as a result strain on private property as well as on-street parking as a result. In preparation for this presentation, staff took a look at some of the other Coachella Valley cities to see just what their code said. And in a lot of respects, our code is very similar to theirs. The other valley cities have codes that also reinforce traditional single-family residential neighborhoods. But we also found some exceptions that are worth calling out in this presentation. We found that Indio prohibits parking in front of a mailbox. We talked to their staff and learned that they use that as a tool to deal with parking complaints in a reactive manner. So where there is conflict, that prohibition allows them to assist and enforce in those situations in a reactive manner. We also learned that we're really one of the few valley cities that regulates driveway width, and we're the strictest. The only other city that we identified in our survey that regulated driveway width was the city of Desert Hot Springs, and they have a 20-foot maximum, whereas ours is 16 feet. Palm Springs had an interesting exception, and this is one that we also liked as staff as well. They allow for a reduction in the required front yard landscaping. So they allow more surface parking in the front yard when a turnaround is required to avoid traffic hazards on an adjacent street. So in the prior presentation, we're talking about some of the higher volume roadways that we have in the city. And we have a lot of residential properties that front onto those. Date Palm, Cathedral Canyon, Landau, Vista Chino. And the parking on those streets is very different than parking in neighborhoods in the city. And that may be an area that we want to think about. Should we allow for a greater percentage of that yard to be paved or to have a hard surface to allow for increased parking or a turnaround?
Andrew?
Yes.
We have allowed those particular streets to be different. Many homes already on Vista Chino and also in Cathedral Canyon already have either circular driveways or they do have the extension to either side of the driveway so they can actually pull in and drive.
And you are right, except your code still reinforces that 50% standard. It doesn't back that up. So we have a lot of those out there, but the code doesn't necessarily permit it. And we also learned that La Quinta does not have a minimum open space or maximum impervious surface area requirement for single-family residential. So there are some exceptions and some guidance that we can draw on. So we do see a fair number of residential parking complaints. In the month of August, we saw 7 complaints. A lot of these deal with junk or inoperable vehicles, but some also point to vehicle parking on landscape surfaces or excessive vehicle parking. There are some examples shown in your staff report. We've provided those on the slides as well. So in these examples, you can see parking on a landscape surface or parking that goes beyond the driveway limits. And the 2 on this slide are interesting in the sense that the one on the left is Vista Chino. You see the red curb at the bottom of the slide. There is a fire hydrant in proximity to that property on the right, and then on the left there's a bus stop. So while the street is technically striped to allow for on-street parking, there is a red curb in that area that really limits their ability to park on street in that location. As well, you also have higher speeds, higher traffic volume being on Vista Chino. That property gets a lot of complaints, really because of a vehicle parked in that location. So our code today says at most they could have a 16-foot wide driveway. At most they could have 50% of that front yard with a hard surface, that concrete surface. There's not consideration given for a special circumstance like that. Councilmember Gutierrez, you're right, that there are a lot of properties on Vista Chino that do have different characteristics, that have either a dual driveway with a turnaround or that they may have additional parking. The one on the right, that's on 30th. They have used pavers and gravel, and actually it looks decent, but our code says no, that's not allowed. But that's an example on 30th where, again, I think the property owner has sort of taken matters into their own hands and is backing in and is parking on their property as opposed to the street. So the 7 complaints that we had in August, that's fairly typical. We get about 7 complaints a month on residential parking.
Andy, are those repeated calls from the same person, or Can you track that, or?
Many of those are anonymous, so it's difficult to say with certainty, but I think we do see some repeated comments, and we see some of the same properties pop up from month to month. So that covers the private property side of the presentation. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to John Corella to talk about on-street and to close out the presentation.
Thank you, Andy.
Thanks, Andy. Andy, you're a hard act to follow. It's very eloquent. I admire it. So residential on-street parking. In California, there's no law that prohibits parking in front of mailboxes. Cities can choose the mark of white curb for the purpose of designated as a loading, unloading, or mail delivery. We just did one in the auto center where they had a mailbox that they weren't able to, the mailman wouldn't stop at because it's red on Auto Center Drive entering in front of the Jeep dealership. We ended up painting it white. The post office official said that now his mailman's more comfortable parking there and delivering the mail. That's the only instance that I know of right now that we do it. It is appropriate sometimes for gang mailboxes where people will stop continually to go check their mail, but get back in their car and then go to their residence. But on an individual basis, we just don't see that, and we don't see it from other cities. So we do have that ability in municipal code. We estimated that if we were going to paint that white curb, there'd be about 7,600 places we'd paint it. And you see the cost on the board.
How many places?
It gets prohibitive.
How many places?
7,600 individual mailboxes.
I'm just going to point out, this has been, as this has been brought up before, this has been one of the things saying, oh, we can't do this because we'd have to paint all the curbs. There's no requirement that we paint all the curbs.
Correct.
If we change the code, right? Because that's never been proposed. That's just kind of ridiculous. But it's been used as like a stumbling block. Oh, we can't even look at it because, we're not going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars painting the curbs and then maintaining them. Okay. So it's worth mentioning, I suppose, but hopefully we're not going to focus on that.
And I'll just ad lib in here. People say, can I paint that curb red? And it's like, well, you can't park there either or even stop or stand there. So there's a challenge there. And even on a Sunday, you couldn't park there because mail isn't delivered on Sunday. Some people take that license to be able to, if you have a party, people park all over the place. So we talked about that. City of Indio specifically prohibits unattended parking in front of a mail receptacle regardless of the curb marking. We like that, and our director of community development stated that's something we could add to our code. Street sweeping, we talked about on street sweeping days, the city's launching in Code Red, which is an app that people can sign up for, and what it'll do, and it can be used for emergencies as well to say, there's a disaster or this street is closed because of an accident. But you can use it for regular interval messages. And one of them that we're launching this with will be the street sweeping. And you'll get basically a message that says street sweeping tomorrow. Please move your car. We're crafting the message right now. And we're getting all that input on the days the street sweeping is going to be done. We're actually going to try further refining it with working with the street sweeping companies because we do get complaints. We had Mr. Enrique come one meeting and say they missed my street on street sweeping day. We followed up on that. The street sweeper actually broke down and then they came a day later, but people didn't plan on it, so they didn't have their cars moved. So we're trying to further refine that and work with the street sweeping company that if they do have a breakdown, notify us as soon as possible. Tell us when you're going to get back out there, and we can also message that. So that is going to be basically the introduction of how we get cars basically to move so they can optimize their street sweeping operations on their street. Excuse me, I went the wrong way. So, once again, for alternatives, as Andy's cited, for private property, we can increase or eliminate driveway width standard. It is, as you can see, we are more restrictive than any other city in the Coachella Valley. We can increase the percentage of front yard and side street yard that may be improved as for open parking. Include a provision to allow greater percentage of front yard to be improved as a driveway or open parking areas for lots fronting certain roadways and certain classifications. Date Palm Drive and Vista Chino are perfect examples where a roundabout driveway or two driveways that are connected make it pretty practicable to have that instance. And we require setback for the adjoining property for a driveway or open parking areas. So that's for the private property. For on-street, prohibiting unintended vehicle parking in front of the mailbox. Basically, when we had looked at that, staff did a research of all the cities and that one came out. It was like, wow, that one's not bad, because you can use that to mitigate any challenges you may have from people calling in regarding that. Fiscal impact. Basically, to change the municipal code, there's no anticipated fiscal impact. We can, if the municipal code is changed with those regulations, infill projects, we can work with them on that, implementing that in the structure of their infill project request and what parking demands are. For existing projects, for people that want to expand their driveway because they have that additional vehicle in there, we can work with that. And then on new developments in whole tracks, we can work with that too. The enforcement of on-street parking, if we did implement the municipal code, would be done on a complaint basis. That's what basically the city of Indio does. It wouldn't be an enforcement action that we'd actually go out there and look and see if someone's parking there. If that were to occur, there would be a fiscal impact because we'd have to set up a task force for that. So there's labor and equipment involved in that. Come on. So with the direction of the city council, staff can initiate the zoning code amendment to modify the residential parking standards and an amendment to the municipal code to prohibit parking in front of mailboxes. So our recommendation is, as I just cited, increase, eliminate driveway width standard, allow greater percentage of front yard space to be improved as a driveway, as Andy described, and then once again, support us on our implementation of pilot program for street sweeping notification and observe the results. And once word gets out, we're ready to launch. Just Ryan, our communications manager, is ready to send it out on all platforms, says if you want this information, sign up. I do have members of the community that talk to me about street sweeping, and I've asked them if they could be advocates if we got such a thing, and they would work to get their neighbors to get this app on their phone too as well. Once again, it's a culture. Not speaking of trash cans specifically, but when you come home late at night and you see other people's trash cans out, you go, oh, I forgot it was this day, and you get your trash cans out. Street sweeping would be the same thing. Oh, why are there no cars on the, this side of the street or off the street? Oh, it must be that. So it can cascade into more of a socio-cultural thing for the neighborhoods. And with that,
Andy,
that's
what
the
would
end
the
of the
fine be?
presentation, Mayor.
What would the fine be if someone would receive a ticket? It would be from a police officer, not code compliance, correct?
Not sure of that because they've never gone out there and actually
Code
find
compliance
it.
can do parking enforcement, and it would be the same as any other parking violation.
But you don't have an amount what that would be,
I don't know
No.
what they are.
but Indio charges.
We can find out specifically. They use it basically as what they stated is it's prohibited. They go out there and warn people. People realize it, and then it actually works. I can ask them if they've had to cascade deeper into a fine, but they didn't actually offer that as, oh, we've had to do this far.
Well, there's a lot of high-density areas here in Cathedral City, and I would find it annoying if I wouldn't receive my mail. Obviously, the mail department doesn't get out of their vehicle to place the mail in the mailbox if it's blocked. Is that it? They just keep right on going? Is that their policy?
It is and it isn't. If it's very restrictive for them to put mail in the mailbox, because a lot of the mailboxes that face the street aren't facing the street anymore. they actually go and it's facing the home side,
So,
the interior side
when
of
we
it.
looked into this before, there is federal regulation that says, I'm surprised you didn't look this up, that they don't have to deliver the mail. It actually says they're not going to deliver the mail. And I think it's like if there's not clearance, like 3 feet or so. I don't know if that's 3 feet on each side of the mailbox or something like that. Now, individual postal carriers, you know, they have a good heart and they're there for the community. They're not there to skip mailboxes. So many of them will deliver the mail. I have had one tell me, well, they're basically breaking the rules. If they get injured, blah, 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 they get investigated, you know, that why did you get between cars and all this kind of stuff. So I don't know if we want to get into that, but they have rules that say they don't have to deliver the mail if it's blocked or within so many feet. So that causes a problem in many areas. We repeatedly brought this up because I've had people, actually I've had people from, a lot of people from my neighboring district there, because the lots tend to be narrow and they have a lot of cars, and some of them are near the commercial zones, and which brings a lot on street parking. Unfortunately, it breaks my heart. Sometimes they say, well, it reminds me of the STVR thing we had where the neighbors had to be the police, where we actually have people that are the mailbox police because they want to get their mail that day without having to go stand in line at the post office, that the post office will give them little Post-it notes that say, please don't park in front of the mailbox. And they'll go as a car parks and they'll put it on the car. But I don't see why they should do that if it's repeat, especially if it's repeat people now. And they'll get told, well, it's not illegal. Your city didn't make it illegal, as some cities have. So hopefully, and I'm encouraged to see that Indio uses it more of just a warning and trying to work with the people. That's always how police actions and code actions work best, when they can work with people. I'm sure that you would have to have at some point where it's a ticketable offense and somebody could get a ticket if they did it over and over again, especially maybe in a commercial area if they're parking to go to work or something and they're parking in front of somebody's mailbox and for some reason they just don't care about our residents. But, right now, there's really nothing that we can do. Right. And it's very unreasonable for our residents this is their home, and often they're homes that have been there a long time, that they have to either be the police themselves or repeatedly go to the post office to get their mail.
And Councilmember Gregory is correct, because it submitted on our GO request as a complaint to code compliance. We've only seen 5 in the last 4.5 years, but that doesn't mean we've gotten a few phone calls. We try and mitigate it with the neighbors, but I have a feeling that people don't see it as a city challenge, or they don't want to come to the city and do that. So with this tool, I see that as something has a little, so to speak, emphasis to it. And if we roll it out on a campaign that everyone knows that now that's an official municipal code, and it could be finable, I think the word would get around and people would be a little more respectful of that.
I agree. Now, what would constitute parking in front? Would it be from the mailbox and 15 feet before it, or 10 feet? I mean, what would the space be that would be a no parking?
That's a great question, and we'd have to identify it more, and so we'll research the cities. We know Indio's the only one in our area that has that, but we'll research other cities, see if they refine it a little better. And it could be in conjunction with the governmental code.
I was going to say, I'd try to line it up with what the
Gregory
post
is stating.
office says.
Look at their regulation and see what it says.
Yes.
And as far as the allowing greater parking, I'm sure that would really help a lot of houses, especially like on Vista Chino or Date Palm. I do agree. I think that's necessary, but there would be rules and regulations how to do it, that the curbs would have to be removed so that it's not driving over the curb or sidewalks. And is that?
Yes, and I don't know that we need to get to that level of specificity in the zoning code, other than perhaps identifying that on arterial or greater roadway classifications, that we can make that determination and really leave that in the hands of the city engineer to make that call. I think that's language that we can work on and bring
Okay.
back. That would support a lot of those existing non-conforming situations that we know exist in the community, and would really be responsive to those property owners, those residents that have homes on some of those streets.
Okay, thank you. So I'm pretty much good on both of those. Councilmember Gregory.
So thank you, and thank you so much for your work and for bringing this forward. I think this is, as has been stated, that this is an issue that a lot of our residents have not believed that the city is going to assist them on, and so they've taken it, as you said, they've taken it into their own hands, and they have built whatever they're going to build, but it doesn't mean that they meet the code, and theoretically, if someone complains, then the city turns into the having to come and try to enforce it. And if it's a health and safety issue, if it's a blight issue, I don't think that we have a problem enforcing those. But as you pointed out, times have changed, and by people that are following our regulations, we're basically forcing them out into the street, which causes all other kinds of issues. And I don't see how that adds to the beautification of our city to have all of our city streets lined with cars so that people can have, landscaping, which we promote them to have gravel or some type of non-plant landscaping anyways, but you can't see it, maybe if you're walking on the sidewalk or you're the next door neighbor, because the street is lined with cars, and it just does not make a lot of sense to me. I'm all for beautiful neighborhoods, and I'm all for Wally and Leave It to Beaver and the Brady Bunch and big green yards with elm trees. But then there's the reality of life, and people need to be able to utilize their yards and hopefully get their cars off the street. Street parking, besides not necessarily being attractive, is inherently dangerous, with people trying to walk between cars to get in and out of cars. You're likely to have property damage with people running into your cars and then just taking off or scraping by your cars. So most people want to get their cars off of the street. But again, the city ends up being at least having rules on the books that say you can't do that. You can only have a 16-foot driveway, and you have to have a certain amount of your yard is landscaped. And the reason I've always been told is, I've been told different things over the years. I've been told, the water has to be able to soak in, but then I'm told, that's not really the reason as far as engineering goes. And there are other ways to do that. I've been told, of course, that, because we want to have beautiful houses, but like I say, I would think we would want to concentrate on whatever's allowed or whatever's there to be kept upright and neat and clean and that type of thing, over exactly why I'm telling my neighbors that I'm not in an HOA. I'm telling them they have to have a certain amount of yard landscaped, but they have to park the car on the street. So I'm encouraged that we have brought this forward. And I'm in support of your recommendations. I know you don't necessarily have 100% of the specifics in. I suppose that would come with whatever code changes you had to make, and so we could discuss percentages and those then. I'm really kind of a fan of not telling people how wide their driveways have to be, and I'm kind of a fan of not telling them what percentage of their yard has to be landscaped under the realities of life today, where we don't want them to have green sod, so I don't know why we're getting into telling them what they need to have in their front yard. I'm also kind of a fan, as long as, if it could be written, of allowing pavers instead of having to have solid concrete. I don't know if you would have to articulate some standards as to what the pavers would need to be, and they would have to, right now, if your concrete gets all torn up, the city could come in and say, your driveway is a mess, and, you're not maintaining it. So I suppose if somebody had broken pavers, those type of things, it could almost be enforced the same way. So I think we need to have a lot more flexibility in this. I'm not trying to insinuate that we shouldn't have beautiful residences, but I think that at least for at least for the realities of life, as people that have a lot of cars, we need to build in a lot more flexibility. So certainly, we need to, on roadways, as you've already discussed, in areas where there is no street parking, because some of these areas have no street parking, and you've also pointed out others that have limited street parking, red curbs, but some of them also have narrow lots, those types of things. So if we just say we're not going to regulate a lot of these things, I don't know if we need to get into that, because it would apply everywhere. If the council here decides, well, I want to, for somebody that has larger lots, I still want to regulate how much driveway they can have and how much yard they can have, okay, but then I think we need to get into some exceptions. As you talk about, we mentioned cul-de-sacs. Cul-de-sacs is fun because technically the same rules apply, but many times if you put even a 12-foot driveway, you've taken up more than 50% of the front yard on a cul-de-sac. So right now, I think we just kind of ignore it, but I mean, those are other examples, and there are many, many more I bet we could point out. So, and I know you spoke about giving engineering some flexibility, and I think I'm a fan of that. There should be a process, but I'm a fan of having some flexibility because everything is a little different. I did want to also congratulate you. I think it's a good idea to bring this in with the street sweeping, because one of the issues that we see with street sweeping and all the cars being forced onto the street, again, has to do with the inability to be able to park on their own property. So, and when it comes to street sweeping, if we are going to push people off the streets, I think the city really, I think that's a good idea. I think we should be able to clean the streets, and I think we should have days, but I think we should also consider, well, where are we going to have these people park on the street sweeping day if they're not, hopefully many of them are going to work and taking their vehicles with them, but I hope that that's a side effect of allowing or parking on people's property, is that they will have at least the ability to have some place to park on street sweeping days. So I could go on and on, Mayor, but I think this is the staff has done a good job at least getting us this far, and I think that this type of review and possible changes is very appropriate. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Councilmember Lamb.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you for your comments, and thank you for your presentation. And I am in support of the recommendations. And as far as the impact to the mailboxes, I live up on the Cove, and there are two areas that are specifically impacted, and that's Foothill and Channel. And there are, especially when season hits and the weather is wonderful, lots of hikers and bikers have rediscovered, this area, and it's wonderful, but there are about 15 homes that are specifically impacted by cars and bikes, and so that will make a big difference. And, the idea of an alert about street cleaning is fantastic. And with the entryway signs, this is really all under the big banner of civic pride and moving Cathedral City forward and elevating the look of our city. And so I think that in every area that we can, that we make these little incremental improvements, begin with the end in mind. The end in mind is a beautiful city. So, every step that we take, and thank you for taking the time to really fact find and do this presentation for us, because every step we take moves us forward to that. And having neighbors being able to get their mail, having the streets clear so it's not a safety issue, that they can park and we can bring in the equipment to clean the roads, all that's going to help in the long term. So thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys for your presentation. I'll try to keep this quick. Mostly they're just things I don't know. So when you mandate concrete, can it be stamped? So can they make it attractive by stamping the concrete?
Yes.
Thank you. And so I feel that we have a duty to help our federal agency deliver mail. I mean, they are part of government just like we are, and we should be better partners. Let's work towards doing something that will help them. And then just a little backstory. When I first moved here, I got this thing on my phone. It was called Shake, and it was supposed to tell you if there was ever an earthquake. And after a month, there were so many damn notifications, I got rid of it. So let's just make sure we don't do that with our notifications, where people are like, shoo, Cathedral City, they're writing me 3 times a day. Have you ever had the Shake notification? It's like all the time. And then lastly, if we don't enforce poor parking, if we don't enforce these standards, then we lose the bite. I mean, there's no way. If you're going to, it's like, go to your room or else kind of a thing, right? And it just never is enforced. But I'm going to recommend, as I have many times before, and I'm going to look at them now when I say this would be a great Citizens on Patrol project where they don't even really have to get out of their car. They can put a reminder, and after enough times, I suppose you could reinforce or enforce, a little more strictly. But in the beginning, it might just be training. And so it could be as easy as using our Citizens on Patrol, our cops, to put out those in the neighborhoods that we have the most problems. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Gutierrez.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, when I was running for council, I did knock on every single door and talk to the residents in each home. That was one of probably the highest number of complaints that I received from residents, that their neighbors were always blocking their mailbox. And one of the reasons, as Councilmember Gregory mentioned, is one particular resident actually had to wait until they happened to see the mailman coming around so they can actually go get their mail, because there was always a vehicle parking on front of their mailbox. And as a matter of fact, police were called, but they had nothing to say. They couldn't do anything about it because it's legal to park on the street. There's no ordinance, there's nothing. So there was nothing they could do. So the residents were stuck. So I'm really happy to hear this presentation, also what my colleagues have to say, that I am in favor of it. We should have done it a long time ago. And if we start to enforce this, when someone calls, we can also send a police officer, because most of the time it's the same repeat offenders that do this. So I'm really happy to hear this and that we're actually going to do something about it. Now, regarding parking, there's a reason why we have standards, and that is to have a balance between parking and a beautiful home. That's why we have standards. Even though they haven't been updated for a long time, we have to beautify and keep the beauty of our city with certain changes. The changes that we need to definitely do is we definitely need to amend and those areas, those streets, Cathedral Canyon, those main streets that do not have enough parking or room to move around safely. Day Palm, Vizcachino, the streets that you mentioned, thoroughfares that you mentioned. Now, as far as the width, 16, yes, I know that many times we don't enforce it because we have homes with 3-car garages, which they're probably 24 feet. So I don't mind going from 16 to 24. That will create 3 additional parking spaces. Remember also, many homes have 3-car garages. That means 3 plus 3 is 6 parking spaces that they do have. Now, when we have residents that have a boat, they have a trailer, they have an RV, and they also have 4 vehicles, there's no way that we can actually accommodate them. It's ridiculous for us to waste our time. No, they need a yard to actually park their vehicles. That's the bottom line. It's a residential home area. It's not an industrial or commercial parking. So I want to make sure that we don't cross the line where a residential area becomes a parking garage, pretty much. So to increase it to go over 50%, I'm not in agreement, but I am in agreement from going from 16 to 20, I say even 24. That way they will have plenty of room to park 3 vehicles at least in their driveway. I am in agreement with that. Now, what else? What Indio's doing, I love it, and we are in alignment, like I mentioned, with all the cities pretty much, and the percentage of how much needs to be green versus driveway. So I think 50% is perfect. Just go from 16 to 20. I'm in agreement with that. Thank you.
Thank you. There's another issue I wanted to discuss. I talked with Charlie on this when we met, and I think I spoke with the chief on it last week. We've had some situations where RVs been parking on commercial areas and industrial areas, and I believe the law is 72 hours that they can stay there. Is there any way we can look at that ordinance too, how we can shorten that, possibly to 24 hours or something similar, because there could be trouble down the road with RVs staying there long. Like this one particular gentleman, he would leave and he'd come back and stay another 72 hours. They had fudge a little bit more. It just got to be kind of a nuisance and a lot of wasted time for city workers. So could you look into that as well, if it's possible to shorten that up?
We can, yes. And I would suggest, based on this discussion, that our logical next steps here are to prepare an ordinance that does a lot of what council has discussed. And I think when we bring that ordinance before council, that'll be an opportunity to see the details and for council to weigh in on, do you want to go from 24 or 16 to 20 or 24? The 50%, do you want to hold firm on that 50%? Do you want to consider exceptions on some of the arterial streets? The distance from the mailbox. I think that's an opportunity for us to get into some of those details. We can take a look at the RV parking allowance and the time period for parking on street.
Yeah, and a lot of people that have businesses, they might have 2-3 work trucks. They might not use 2 for a week or 2, and they're sitting in front of residential areas too. So I know that's been a problem that we've had down in the past that Councilmember Gutierrez has been working with. So I think that'd be perfect time to put all this together. So,
okay,
thank you.
Mayor, one more thing. I'm also in favor of giving our city engineer more leniency as to which properties might need a variance, and I am actually comfortable with giving him that authority as well.
I appreciate that. Since this is an amendment to the zoning code, this also has to go before the planning commission. So that may be an intermediary step before we bring it back to council, but I think we have sufficient direction from council.
Okay. Charlie, you got that? Where we're going? Okay. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Appreciate your work.
Thank you.
And now we have public comments.
I don't have any request to speak forms, but if you're a member of the public and you wish to provide public comment on this item, please raise your hand.
Thank you.
And I see none.
Thank you, Raymond. 2024 fall events preview. Mr. City Manager, do we have a staff report?
Thank you, Ryan Hunt. Our Communications and Events Manager is here to give you a preview of what's coming up this fall. We got a lot of things going on, and I think the community will enjoy the options that are available to them. Ryan?
Thank you, City Manager. Mayor Pro Tem, City Council, it's good to be with you. This is always a fun presentation for me to get to be with you all and kind of talk about all the exciting things happening in our community. The fall season is definitely one of our busiest. The spring's busy, but not in the way that's uniquely kind of almost every weekend, it seems like, in the fall, as it continues to get even better and better with more programming in our amphitheater. And so for our audience, and I know you all have already seen a snippet of this, I played a little bit of it at State of the City, but I think it's good for our residents to see all of what you all as a council have endorsed and approved for our community to be able to enjoy and participate in. And just a couple of ads that we put in here to our normal rotation, but I wanted to make sure, I think you all got your invitations recently, either today or yesterday, about the Roadrunner Motors groundbreaking, which is really, really exciting. I'll be working with Nicholas over there on their marketing team as we prepare for that. I'm sure we'll have some remarks from Mayor Carnevale, and that'll be Wednesday, October 16th at 8:30 a.m. at the future site of Roadrunner Motors, which is just off of East Palm Canyon. So we're excited about that. And then the homecoming parade, I do know there was a little bit of a scheduling conflict with the conference that many of you all are attending this year, but we'll still support them in every way we possibly can with the parade, and have our fire and police officials out there as well. And then the folklorico groups and the band always come out and perform, the choir. So should be a really, really good day for downtown Cathedral City in our partnership with George Howell and his team over at Cathedral City High School. So the first in the amphitheater kind of kick off the past couple of years in the fall, and once again returning, is Coachella Valley's Battle in the Desert, which is produced by Jesus Gonzalez, who's an officer with the Cathedral City Police Department. Last year they experienced a record crowd, and they're hoping to have a little more than 1,000 attendees. We obviously hope for more, but that's a good goal to have for this event, which I think just gets better and better. And they are utilizing Mercado Technological Solutions, so hopefully the full AV experience, complementary to them for our amphitheater, and what that has to offer will really elevate kind of the spectacle of it. But it is a sanctioned event by USA Boxing, so you get to see some really high quality product, boxing up there, and the proceeds generated go to various local charities, which I highlighted for you at a recent presentation for your approval. Halloween, we had about 100 dogs for the first year, and it was a real popular event. We had some great costumes. You can see some of the best that we have there. One of them, I think, basically did the whole character vision of Shrek, which was really, really cute. But it's funded by the Parks and Community Events Commission. This takes place at Panorama Dog Park, which is popular not just on Halloween Spooktacular, Halloween dog costume days, but you can find a good crowd there just about every beautiful day. And it's a really, really good venue that we continue to hope to find ways we can continue to utilize. Grocery Outlet Cathedral City is once again our sponsor of this event. They were a great sponsor last year. They also sponsored our food and goodies at our Rainbow Crossing painting party for LGBT days. They are a really, really good community supporter and partner. George's Bar and Grill has also been added as a sponsor this year with some gift cards and raffle prizes. We'll have first, second, and third place winners for the best costumes for small and large dogs, but we've got a new category this year, which is the best look-alike costume. So the adults and dogs, how much can they match up, which should be a lot of fun too. So we're really, really excited about another year of Halloween. So we're branding it as Saturday, come with your pets and get them all dressed up, and then Sunday, either dress up yourself or bring the kiddos dressed up for the trick-or-treating that takes place at Spooktacular. This is one of my personal favorites. I got to dress up as Batman for the kids last year. It was a lot of fun, and we had about 3,500 attendees last year, so we're hopeful we can keep that up. It's been a pretty consistent crowd every year that I've been here. 50,000 pieces were not enough. Friends at La Michoacana, so they've had to go up, I think, to about 60,000 pieces. We ran out with about an hour left last year. DJ music from Jacob's Way Productions and Shauna McGloin, trick-or-treating, food for purchase again from Meester Zebra, and an opportunity for the kids in their costumes to win free bicycles. And Livestream Blood Bank will also be out there. They had a good year last year. They're hoping to follow it up with another good year this year. It is 12 to 3. And then the Palm Springs Pride Parade. So that'll be November 3rd. We have already placed our first half parade entry for this year. So it'll feature a Cathedral City Parade contingent, as it has every year, with branded Pride shirts. The t-shirts last year, the black ones with the rainbow, have been so popular. We're actually just getting more of those. They've been such a treat. And Yeah, absolutely. And then this year I thought was really cool. So the cost is starting to increase a little bit to enter the parade, and then the decorations kind of adding up. So we actually reached out to some community partners and businesses, and the Roost Lounge is actually going to be a $1,000 sponsor to help pay for decorations and the float, which is obviously one of our more prominent LGBTQ+ businesses in town. So we're really, really excited to partner with them. We'll give them a little logo placement rather. But we will be celebrating both the 10th anniversary of the Cathedral City International Hot Air Balloon Festival, as well as our newly branded LGBT+ Days, which is coming back as a city-run event from March 7th through the 9th of 2025. All right, the 10th anniversary of the Balloon Festival, one of the signature events, not just of Cathedral City, but really of the entire Coachella Valley. And we're really, really excited to have Leanne Rimes as the headline concert performer. As people have started to come back into town, we've seen a noticeable uptick in sales, particularly over the last 2 weeks. So we're excited about the momentum of that. And I know hundreds of the free tickets that are available for residents to get in for free at the casino have been utilized as well, too. So we're seeing a really good...
As far as you know, are any left?
Oh, yeah. There should be,
free tickets that-
the free tickets, there should be a few hundred left. Yes, absolutely. We're projected to have anywhere from 25 to 30,000 attendees this year, and this event was honored with the prestigious Palm Award for Visitor Experience by Visit Greater Palm Springs last fall. We have our own city balloon, which is obviously really, really cool. Visit Greater Palm Springs continues to partner with us to send that. They're actually going to Albuquerque, sending the balloon, which is really one of the gold standard festivals, maybe the best in the United States, which is really, really cool. There'll be a drone light show, food trucks again, tethered balloon rides, a car show. We'll have kid zones. I know our police and fire departments have already agreed to participate and bring some of their cool machinery and equipment. And so we'll have a community stage. So if you can't get into the Leanne Rimes concert, it's a little bit out of your price range, and you want to just enjoy free music in the festival lawn area, we'll have a community stage with great cover bands and acts that'll be there throughout the day on Saturday as well. And that sponsor this year is Comfort Air, who's been our title sponsor of Snowfest for the last couple of years. They've come on as a community stage sponsor, and I want to give kudos to City of Rancho Mirage. We've been talking to them for a little bit, and their amphitheater is actually down this year, so they're doing refurbishments for that. And there's so many events that do take place in Rancho Mirage, and they're kind of being able to benefit off of that. And so we said, hey, come on board and maybe see if we can jump in with some sponsorship dollars. And so they're a $10,000 sponsor of our Balloon Festival this year, which we were very grateful for and appreciative of. Most of that will go towards waiving public safety fees for a lot of the events with the launches, but we're really excited to have Rancho Mirage on board. Snowfest. So had about 5,000 attendees last year. That'll be a projected attendance again this year, maybe slightly down. We are kind of truncating it a little bit, going from the all-day event to more of a 4 to 8. It'll still be on a Saturday, December 14th, but the real hits last year were the train rides and the snow. I mean, the snow was packed pretty much from the beginning to end. The train rides, I think, went an extra 10, 15 minutes after kids were still waiting in line. So the Elf Workshop by Scrap Gallery has also been one of the more popular components. We're going to throw in an ugly sweater contest this year, do something fun with that. The tree lighting will be with Santa and Mrs. Claus, and KASQ's Patrick Evans has once again agreed to be the MC of this year's tree lighting event. Moving into the winter a little bit, but I still wanted to give it a good placement, is the Palm Springs International Film Festival. Charlie, our city manager, and I just recently met with them to renew our sponsorship agreement. We're working through that now. That takes place January 2nd through the 13th. Screenings of 180 films from 74 countries, including 48 premieres. Last year, it was the most number of those type of kind of marquee events that the Pickford had actually received. We hope to continue to see that trend continue. I can tell you right now, event organizers of the Palm Springs International Film Festival are very impressed with the Mary Pickford Theater, and they're excited to have it as part of the rotation. Ted Hain, the general manager, Damon Rubio as well, have echoed that last year was the best that they have had for the venue, and we hope to continue that positive momentum. You can see that we help with banner placement for decor to be able to amplify the festival, but for what we get out of that, the number of times our logo, the number of times our city is mentioned, it really is, I think, some of the best bang for our buck when it comes to sponsorship. And with that, hopefully it's a fun, kind of lighter tour of what we got going on in the fall, but I'm always happy to answer any questions or if there's anything that I can clarify.
I see no speakers. Council members, any questions?
I have a question.
Sure, go right ahead.
Yes, council member.
For residents to get free tickets, all they need to do is go to the casino and show their ID.
That's correct. Yeah, the Cathedral City downtown casino location at the Ace Club Lounge. So as you walk in, I think it's on the right side of the main entryway as you get past.
One per...
one per ID, yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I love this time of year.
Yeah,
This
we
is
do
just
too.
great. Yeah, I just love all these parties. And I know you know this, but I'm just going to share for the people listening it. Last year, there was a little boy, he'd never seen snow before. And I held his little hand, and I walked into the snow with him, and I made a little snowball, and I threw it, and he was so happy. And I turned to walk out, and he nailed me in the fanny with his own snowball. Been the best of the best of intentions, right?
Yes.
So anyway, that was actually really fun, and I look forward to Leanne Rhymes. It's going to be such a big plus. I hear people talking about it. She's on, one of those shows where you come and sing, and then she does The Voice.
The Voice, yeah, she's on the UK and the Australia
Yeah, the
versions of
UK
that
Voice,
show.
right.
Yeah.
Right, and so, she's older, but she's still very popular and very successful. So it'll be great to have her here, and I just appreciate all the work. Having our own balloon is a big one. I mean, that's just it says something about our city, and now that it's traveling to other places, I feel like we're all grown-ups now, so I appreciate all your efforts. I can't wait. My dog is coming as Sherlock Holmes this year.
Oh, very
I might
nice.
come as
Look forward to
Moriarty,
that.
I can't say for sure.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I appreciate it. I want to give kudos to Adam Chastain, our new Events and Recreation Coordinator, who's hard at work. He's doing a lot of great stuff in his first few months here. So it'll be nice to have an assistant to be able to kind of oversee a lot of that, putting him to work real fast. So it'll be a lot of fun. And then Kevin Lockwood, webmaster graphic designer, he's behind some of the posters and designs that you see. For all that, I want to give shout out to my staff too.
You needed another runner.
Yeah.
You can't be
well,
the only runner.
Well, thank you to you all as a council. I appreciate the support. Thank you.
I hope Leon wasn't listening tonight by you saying she's older. I mean,
Well, I'm just kind of surprised. She doesn't look the same on TV as she does in the picture. But that's Hollywood, right?
yeah.
But I want to know if I can go back and change campaign things like when I was 29. I'm just saying.
Okay, I think you said in good intentions. Councilmember Gregory or Councilmember Knapp? Okay. All right, any public comment?
I don't have any request to speak forms for this item. If you're a member of the public and you wish to provide public comment, please raise your hand. You could just come forward and state your name for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Frank Velasquez.
Hi, Frank.
How are you? Thank you for allowing me to talk today. Mayor Carnevale, Mayor Pro Tem Ross, Council, Chief Crum, good to see you, sir. Thank you for your time. My name is Frank Velasquez. I'm a retired law enforcement officer with the Beaumont Police Department, a United States Marine Corps veteran, and a Coachella Valley native. But today I come to you to thank you as the national president of the Unpunished Law Enforcement Motorcycle Club for allowing us to hold the 8th annual Police Officer Memorial Ride, in your great city. I've been involved with law enforcement motorcycle clubs for over 20 years, and I recently created the Unpunished LEMC. This club was established on July 4th, 2024, and is composed of active and retired law enforcement officers, firefighters, and military personnel. Although our organization is young, our members bring many years of experience in serving their communities. We currently have chapters in 10 states as well as in Puerto Rico, and we are growing steadily. All of our members are upstanding citizens in the communities they serve, and all of our members go through a rigorous background check and vetting process and are expected to live their lives unsullied and above reproach. One of our cornerstones of our organization is honoring our heroes. When we heard that the annual Fallen Officer Memorial Ride, which was created to honor Detective Gil Vega and Officer Leslie Zarebny of the Palm Springs Police Department, might not take place this year, we immediately stepped in and put all of our resources into making sure that the sacrifice that those brave officers made would not be forgotten. We partnered with Palm Springs Motorsports, Palm Springs Police Officers Association, Cathedral City Police Officers Association, and the City of Cathedral City to bring the annual Fallen Officer event to your amphitheater. In doing so, we added to the list of officers to be honored the names of Officer Jermaine Gibson and Officer David Vasquez, who while serving with the Cathedral City Police Department made the ultimate sacrifice for their community. I come here today to seek the support and continued partnership of the city to make this annual event, which occurs on the second weekend of November, every year a staple in the city of Cathedral City for many more years to come. The 2024 Fallen Officer Memorial Run will be held on November 9th and will begin at the Palm Springs Motorsports' new location off of Dinah Shore Drive in the Costco Shopping Center. A parade run will take place and the registered riders will be escorted by local law enforcement to the Palm Springs Police Department Officer Down Memorial, where we will have an invocation, make ride announcements, and interview with the media. From there, the riders will be released on a free ride to visit various police departments and sponsor locations across the valley to draw poker cards. After collecting 4 cards, the riders will make their way to the city of Cathedral City, where the culminating event will be held at the amphitheater. A prize will be given to the riders who have the highest and lowest poker hands. Guests will be welcome to live music on the amphitheater stage, food options from local vendors, as well as prizes, raffles, and entertainment for the kids. Over the years, the Fallen Officer Memorial Run has brought in tens of thousands of dollars in proceeds, all of which go to the Peace Officers Association, who in turn use the funds to assist fallen officers' families not only locally, but across the country. Historically, this event brought over 200-plus motorcycles and even more supporters of law enforcement. It is our goal to make this event a staple in Cathedral City to ensure that we never stop honoring those that gave their lives to protect our communities. With your support, I believe we can do just that. Once again, thank you for your time tonight, and thank you for allowing us to have this event in your great city.
Thank you, Frank. Have you, you did that very well.
Thank you.
Have you met with Ryan Hunt, our activities director?
I have not. How are you?
Okay, I would suggest maybe have a talk out in the lobby.
Yeah, it was in your latest weekly update sent out to City Council. So we have an agreement on November 9th to host the memorial ride in the amphitheater. I really want to thank Frank for just kind of sharing his appreciation, inviting you all as a council, and Justin Gardner, who is a co-compliance officer, Purple Heart recipient, and a law enforcement background. This is near and dear to his heart. And so with your all's access to giving us administrative approval for some of these special use permits that don't require anything beyond our communications and events staff, this seemed like a no-brainer to be able to work in a partnership. I also want to thank Chief Crum and Jesse Borrego from the Police Officers Association because we wanted to make sure that this was a merger between Palm Springs and Cathedral City. So I think it's going to be a great event, and obviously paying tribute to all the fallen officers and their families. So.
Wonderful, thank you. Frank, thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Hope to see you again.
Thank you, sir.
No one else in the audience? Okay.
I don't believe so.
Okay, then we'll go to recess right now. Return at 5:30. Thank you.